Hi, everyone. In this video, we're going over the 5 alpha reading holikos. En ho dapesen he te murine kai he melita ho men papos pone ento kipo ho de pais kai ho hargos badidzuse proston avlion. All right. En ho, or en hoi, if you want to get that Yoda subscript, in the time which is literally what this is saying, because we're dropping the word chronos and just assuming it from this masculine relative pronoun. We'll get to all that later, but this while translation is all we need to know. But why does it have the preposition in plus dative? This is in the time which, also known as while. And while they were away, apes and apo plus ani to be. He te, note that he is proclitic, but with the enclitic te following it, it gets an acute accent. And if we see a te, at least in Attic prose, we can probably expect a kai coming down the line for a both and construction. That's what we have here. Both Myrine, or Myrtle, if we prefer, and Melissa. So this is, of course, the wife and daughter of Dicaeopolis, while they are away. On the one hand, hopapos, this is new vocabulary for this lesson, the grandfather, works, pone, ento kipo, in the garden. Those who are in Chapel Hill know about Kipos, the very nice, but also somewhat expensive Greek restaurant, Eastgate. This is where it's coming from, kipo, or kepo, as we have it here. Hodepais, and the child, that is Philip, we know, kai ho Argos, and Argos. Again, why do we have ha here? Because we're talking about the dog that we know. Argos. Badidzusi, walk, make motion, trot, I guess we're talking about Argos. Proston aulion. This is the sheepfold. It's really an enclosed area. And in modern Greek, the cognate for this is just kind of yard. But that's what we're talking about here. Argos kuon esti. So now we're learning who Argos is. The Argos is a dog who's both, again, we know how to work with te here, both large and iskuros, strong. Ten toikian pulate kaito probata. Both, again, so many tikais here, both the oikia, this is the first declension feminine version of oikos, house, oikia, pulate, he, she, it, guards, and in this case, we're talking about Argos, so we'll use he, and the probata. Probata are any kind of herd animal, but typically they're referring to sheep, and it's a neuter plural. It's kind of countable now. We should almost think of these as not as animate creatures, but as property, as material, at least if we're adopting a kind of Greek mindset. So Argos is a big and strong dog, and he both guards, or sorry, raised dot, colon, he guards both the house and the flocks, the sheep. And ho, and we've seen this before, while de badidzusi ho te pais kai ho kuon. So, and while, so the and here is the de, and ho, or and hoi is while, badidzusi, they are walking, both the boy and the dog. Ana ten hodon. Ana is up. You can see this with different prepositional cases. You can also see it simply as an adverb, but here plus the accusative, up the road. You could also say up the hill, however it is. Pilopos, or pilipos, sorry, lagon hora. This is our alpha contract from this chapter. Ento agro trechonta. Philip is seeing a rabbit, lagon. This is in third declension form that we haven't learned yet. The nice thing here is that we can hopefully see that this is the accusative form. So we know it's the direct object of hora. In the field, running. This is a participle that is working together with lagon. We'll learn what participles are and how they function a little bit more later, but let me just tell you that this is an accusative form working with lagon. So it's the rabbit that's doing the running, the hare, not Philip. This would be a different form if it were referring to Philip, a nominative form. But we'll get to all that later. Lue un ton cuna kai ithi de arge pesi dioke. So he lets loose, this is Philip, then the dog, and says, go then, Argos, pursue. My dog would love nothing more than to be released from her leash and to pursue a rabbit. Hopefully Argos feels the same. Hamen un Argos hulacte kai dioke ton lagon. And then, thereupon, Argus, on the one hand, barks and pursues the rabbit, check, and on the other, flees up the Horos. So I said on the one hand, on the other, but note what we actually have here. This first men isn't just working in a mende situation independent of definite articles. This ha men is, well, the men here is following ha. That's the masculine singular nominative definite article. And we learn in this chapter that ha men with another ha de later puts in kind of correlation, I guess is the grammatical term for this, not just the actions or the concepts, but truly the noun. So we have some and others. If we have hoi men on the one hand and hoi de on the other. But here we don't just have the article operating, we have nouns working with it, or at least we do in the case of Argos. So Argos is the one on the one hand, and the ha de, we don't get the nominative form of lagon here, but that's what we can infer from here. Argos, on the one hand, barks and chases, and the rabbit, on the other hand, that's the hade here, flees up the mountain. Let's see, did we have oros or hodos earlier? Okay, good. So we did have anatain hodon up the road. Now we have more maybe topologically up the mountain. Huto, thus, and note that we don't have a sigma because this is followed by a word de that begins with a consonant. So thus and thus, maybe we'd say, swiftly they run. Thus was a great way to translate hutos as we initially had it. But now we get to this word hoste, and this marks a result clause. When we have huto or hutos followed by hoste later, it's not thus fast they run such that, but rather we want to consider it so fast. They run so quickly that dioligu, we've seen this before, in a little time, udunaton, not possible, esti, is it. So it is not possible. So after a little while, it is not possible to see. Ute, this is going to be not, but with the te, we know that there's another ute coming down the line. So neither nor. Neither the dog nor the hare. So let's wrap that all together, starting from line 5. Argos, on the one hand, then barks and pursues the hare, but the hare flees up the mountain. It probably isn't following the road. They run so quickly that in a little time, it is not possible to see either the dog or the hare. You could also say neither the dog nor the hare. It depends on where you want to put the negation in English. All right, next paragraph. Ha un philipos, speude metautus kai boe. Elthadero arge, as you would say, epanelthe okuon katarate. All right, let's do that. Philip then, and again, we never translate these definite articles with proper names. Doesn't work that way in English, but this is the Philip we know, not some new Philip. That's why we have it in Greek. Philip then hastens, hurries after them. That's metautus, and shouts, "Come here," or hither, if you will, but never use hither in this class except ironically. Arge, Argos. Epan elthe, come back. We'll see how all of this works soon, but note that we have elthe here. That's the same elthe command from this verb of motion. O kuon katarat, and we've seen this used as an insult before. You cursed dog. Ala eti dioke hokuon, but still pursues the dog. That's the Greek word order. We need to move this nominative subject to the front of the sentence in English. We need a subject preceding the predicate in English, unless we're talking about questions or commands. But for standard declarative statements, we need this to be at the first. So but the dog still pursues, or possibly is pursuing. Treke un hopilopos es akronto ar oros ala uk hora tonkuna. So, and Philip runs then to the top of the mountaintop, but does not see the dog. We might say his dog here, but you could say the dog too. We know which one. It's Argos. Megaunboa, we've covered this before. He yells loudly. Mega, this is an adverb thing. He's not yelling a loud thing, neuter accusative. This is the adverbial form of that. He yells loudly and calls, but does not hear the dog, or does not hear Argos. Telos de, and this is adverbial use of this neuter word, which we'll learn later, but telos means end. So in the end, athume, so he despairs. He lacks a tumos, or his tumos gives out. We'll learn about Greek body parts and their function as seats of emotions here, but he runs out of all kind of will and happiness on this. He despairs. Hot pice, now we get the subject, and maybe there's a little bit of poeticism here. We're not just using Philip's name, but we're recalling that he's a child and that he maybe is quick to despair, although I'd probably be pretty desperate in this situation too. Finally, he despairs. Who? The child, aka Philip. Katabaine to oros. And katabaine. So anabaine, walk up, katabaine, walk down the mountain. Last paragraph. We got this. Epe de proskore to kipo. Hora auton hopapos kai typoes opai besin. Okay. Then he approaches, enters, walks toward the garden. And his grandfather, the grandfather, hopapos, hora auton. Remember that hora, unlike blepo, can take an accusative object. So, and the grandfather sees him. What are you doing, kid? Because this is not truly son. And we'll see this multi-generationally. Grandfathers will call grandsons, not grandson, but simply pai. Cultural note, Athenian citizen males would have no problem calling their children, or no, sorry, not children, their enslaved individuals in the household, or even the enslaved individuals of others' households, pai. So we'll see this in different things. In the play that Dicaiopoulos comes from, Aristophanes, Acarnanians, he refers to all of his enslaved characters as pai. So that's do with that information what you will. What are you doing, kid? Let's say, he says, Pothen hekes kai puestin hoargos. Where are you coming from? Hekes is an interesting verb. We'll get to that in some other time. So we can just look here for the gloss. Where have you come from? And where is Argos? Pothen is interesting to note. In English, we would say where for both Pothen and pu. But Pothen says where from where. We do have a historical English word for this, whence. Whence come? Whence comest thou, if we wanted to be Shakespearean for Pothen Hekes, but we don't want to be Shakespearean. Where have you come from is a good way to translate this. And where is current time, not moving toward or from, Argos. Hodopilopos, and Philip's like, apo tu auliu heko o pape. So I come from the sheepfold, grandfather. Hoda Argos esti pu en tois oresin. Now, we'll get back to what this kind of pu means, but note that here this pu has a circumflex. That's an interrogative word that's asking where. When you drop the accents from interrogatives, often when you make them, therefore, proclitic or enclitic, as this is, what you're doing is making them indefinite, somewhere. So Argos is somewhere in the mountains. Lagon gardioke. Why is he somewhere in the mountains? Because he's pursuing a rabbit or hare, whatever you call it. Hodopapos, ithivdeopai. Come then, kid. Tiuzetes auton. Why are you not hastening after him? Why are you not looking for him? We've learned zete tao here in this recent vocab. Mehuto rathumos isti. Don't be so rathimos. So we have this, I think, I can't zoom back in the nearest page, but this is again this tumos word that we saw over here where he was losing his tumos. That's despairing. Tumos that's too easy, radion in Greek, and that's what's being here is like, don't be sans souci about this. This is serious. We got to find this dog. Don't just come back here. So don't be so I forget what we have for rathimos, but careless maybe would be a way of thinking about it. Hodapilopos, urathimos emio pape, ude aitios ego. My 5-year-old would definitely say ude aitios ego. And Philip says, okay, we've lost all the facing here. We just have a hode plus the name, and that gives us enough to get us back into this direct speech. I'm not being careless, grandfather, nor am I to blame. Am I blameworthy? The cause, aitios. Megagarbao kai kalo ala uk akue hokuon. So, for I am shouting loudly and calling, but the dog does not hear. We'd probably use a historical tense here, a past tense, but we haven't learned those yet, so we're having present time here. Hodapapos el federo opai pesin, huto lege kaiten bacterian lambane, kai spere hamato paidi ana ten hodom. So come here, kid, he says, and in this way, and saying thus, speaking this, saying these words, that's a nice transition. Kai ten bacterian lambane, thus saying and grabbing his staff. So I guess these aren't participles. So he speaks thus, and he grabs his walking staff, his stick. This is not, you probably guessed this already, where we get the word bacterium from. It's when they first put these things under a microscope, a number of bacteria are rod-shaped, so they were given the Greek name rods. Kaispere hamatopaidi, and he hurries alongside together with the son, the child, the grandson in this case, up the road. All right. Can't wait to finish this with you in a future video. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'll catch you soon. Take care.